Hey everyone, welcome back to part 2 of the Kangaroo Island State Spearfishing titles. If you haven't seen the first part, quickly go check it out before watching this one. But I've tried to make this episode as action-packed as possible, so I hope you guys enjoy it.
Day 2 baby, gonna do the exact same thing all over again, just not swim as far and hopefully get some fish that are above the minimum weight.
So once again, after a short debrief, we headed down to the water for an 8 AM start. However, at this dive location, there were no rocks we had to walk or commando crawl over when heading out, which meant that everyone was just rushing to get out, and it was absolute chaos with divers, floats and lines just everywhere.
It's crazy, hey! There's people everywhere!
But after making it through all the commotion, I once again spotted a school of goatfish, so took one to use as squid bait. So about 20 minutes later, a squid came in and took my bait, and I must say, this squid was a lot smarter than the one I got yesterday, as it wasn't letting me get anywhere near it at all, and after a few minutes of trying to chase it, I just gave up as it was swimming in the opposite direction that I wanted to head in. So after a bit of a swim, I came across a pretty fishy area, so dove down to check it out, and ended up getting my first species of the day. So after I sorted out the leather jacket, I dove down again and was curious to see if any other species would come in. So this time, I planned to lay down at the bottom alongside a big rock, taking cover in its shadow. I was also trying my best to keep my eyes down as I wanted to come across as least threatening as possible and for the fish to feel comfortable with my presence. It worked pretty well as they came in nice and close, and I must say I definitely underestimate the power of actually getting down to the bottom and laying still, as I found with a lot of these reef species, they tend to be curious and come in for a look. In the end, nothing really came in, so I just had to settle for another yellow striped leather jacket. After that, I did a few more dives at this spot, but unfortunately, no other species came in. So I decided to move on and swim further along the coast, and it was no surprise, but I literally didn't see any fish that were on the species list, probably because everyone already had gone ahead of me. So of course, I started looking for some crayfish, while also hoping to come across a rockling. I've noticed lately when grabbing crays, is that if you just grab its antenna, it's not going to actually kick back and rip it off, but rather it's only going to break off if you pull it. So a trick I use if I can reach my other hand in is I simply grab its antenna and with the other hand reach around and grab its horn and pull it out that way. I managed to get 2 small crays in the end, and Daniel also joined in on the action and got himself a nice sized one. After checking what felt like 1,000 cracks and ledges, I finally came across my very first rockling. The lynx crack though was at a really weird angle, and it was sort of an L shape, so all I could see was its side profile of its head as it had backed up. In the end, it took me a few dives to get it, as the crack was so narrow and I just couldn't get my gun at the right angle, but eventually I got my gun in the right position and ended up putting my spear right through its cheek.
Yeah. Oh.
The ling seemed to be invincible though, as even after braiding it 3 times, it still managed to put up a fight.
Oh shit! Frick! Get in there!
So at the time it was only 11 AM, but I was already feeling heaps exhausted, so decided to slowly start making my way back to the starting point, as I didn't want to have a repeat of what happened in day one. So while heading back, I managed to pick up a few more species, including this boarfish. Unfortunately though, my GoPro wasn't recording at the time, so here's another clip of one I shot. I also finally came across some sweet that were legal, so took one. I then started heading back in and managed to pick up a small trevally in the shallows, which I thought would have possibly gone 400 grams. There were a couple King George whitings still hanging around, but they were super flighty, but I don't blame them, as I'm sure I would have been just as flighty if people were trying to shoot spears at me. I had a shot at it, but unfortunately missed, so decided to head in and call it, as it was already 1 o'clock.
So just heading in from the dive, managed to get I think 4 or 5 species, depending if some of them weigh or not. I got my first sling, which is pretty cool, so I'm happy with that. Looking forward to trying that too.
You have to shoot leathery, full up, 9 full up. Now we got under.
It's under.
Yeah.
3, 4,
It's on for 30%.
Too young.
That's gonna be like all my levels.
Boring sugar, I reckon.
Oh,
They're gonna be reasonably big, aren't they?
yeah.
6'5".
665. Too young.
Surely.
Oh yeah. 520. Oh, Ling. This is photo worthy. 2110. Yep. And 3450. Dude, that's a shit photo.
Fish over 3 days. Some nice ling, big nannies, crays, King George, boarfish, big squid, holly, trevally. Dan, you're going to be touching all the fish.
Very easy. Liam Bay!
Second place. Got Kim Adair. Well done, mate. See you, mate. I'm sure you'll bloody get it, mate. First place, Mr. Rob Torelli. We've got our both notorious fish. Want to give it a Daniel Bolt yesterday for his flathead?
So just had the presentations. I ended up coming 14th, I think, out of 17 divers. So not the greatest performance, but at least I didn't come last. Overall though, I had a great experience, really enjoyed hanging around with other spearos and diving over the 2 days, and I seriously took away so much and just learned a ton. And I guess the main 2 things I sort of took away was, one, the importance of actually having a plan when it comes to diving, and especially competitions, as day 1 really took a huge toll on me as I swam way too far down the coast and didn't take into account that I had to swim all the way back. So I was absolutely exhausted and wrecked for day 2 and couldn't dive, I guess, to my full ability because I was just so tired. But I think as well, scouting around and actually knowing the ground makes a huge difference, and obviously I hadn't dove there before, so I think next year when I head back I'm definitely going to try and do some scouting and familiarise myself with the ground and sort of where fish hang out over there. Number 2, probably I realised how much I need to start actually weighing up my fish, because I rarely weigh my fish when I catch them, so I don't really have a rough estimate of how much a certain size fish should weigh or whatever. So I'm going to try and start doing that now. But like I said, overall I had a great experience and don't regret anything at all. Really looking forward to next year's comp, and actually I've got a comp next month, so hopefully I can put into practice sort of what I learned from this comp and take it a bit more serious and see how I go, because I reckon I can do a lot better than how I performed this comp. Anyway, gonna head back now and hang out with the rest of the guys and then get up tomorrow and have one more last dive for the trip, so we'll see you then. Alright, here we go guys, last day in Kangaroo Island. Same thing, different day. I'm so exhausted right now, probably the most tired I've ever felt, but we might as well make the most of the diving while we're here in the island, so let's go get some more fish and hopefully bag our craze.
The reef we had planned to dive that day was a fair swim offshore, but eventually we made it to the spot in about 15 meters of water, and Daniel did the first drop. And holy crap, was this spot fishy. There were monster blue gropers, hundreds of drummers, nanny guy, and fish we had never even seen before. There was also a cray pot down there with a cray inside, but we made sure not to interfere with it. So I went down next to check it out and got myself a nice nanny guy. This reef was seriously insane though, and Daniel and I had never seen an area this abundant with fish life. And on almost every drop we were shooting fish. We might have gone a bit overboard, however we made sure not to take all the good fish and still left plenty for next time when we return. So I noticed there were a couple of these orange and blue wrasse hanging around, which I'd never seen before. I was pretty confident though that it was not a protected species, and knew it was also well within the legal sizing for wrasse. And at the time I thought it was either a fox wrasse or king wrasse, so in the end decided to take it.
I think it's a king wrasse or fox wrasse.
But it turns out it was neither a fox or king wrasse, but rather a Maori wrasse. So what happened on the next drop was pretty cool, but we were taking turns doing dives, and I told Daniel that I was going to do a dive and for him to watch me, but he misheard me and thought I said for him to dive at the same time. So anyway, I did my drop, and right before I shot this nanny, I heard his gun go off. So I turned around and saw that he had just shot a blue morwong, which was another fish he really wanted to get this trip, and is also quite a prized fish here in South Australia.
Do it!
After that, the swell began to pick up, so we decided to call it and head back in. And we were both absolutely stoked with our catch, and there's no doubt this was one of the most successful dives we've had, and we couldn't wait to go back and share it with our family and friends.